Welcome back to the Marathon series in depth. I am excited to delve into the Marathon plot with all of you. In this video, we will be going through the introduction in the manual, which is an important part of the story. According to the Marathon story page, Bungie's first webpage went live on December 13th, 1994. This website had a few small changes to the Marathon manual introduction, along with an added status report that didn't exist within the game manual. I am not sure which version is the earlier version. For reference, the game was released about a week after the webpage went live, which puts the dates close enough that it's hard to know which was the earlier version. My guess is the manual was an earlier version and the status report was added on to provide some more detail. The main difference between the two versions is some brackets and pronunciation, which doesn't change much. Let's not waste any more time and jump right into the introduction on page 2 of the manual. Primary booster burn has ceased. Shuttle Marauder, you're clear for orbital maneuvering. The Marauder launches from its bay on the back of its powerful rocket booster. After the jolting of the separation ceases, you find yourself pondering the fate of the colony receding below you. With apprehension, the same apprehension you felt 322 years earlier, you envision Marcus Tiberius Bundia, one of Sol's greatest leaders. Mankind will venture out past its earthly bounds and move into a future grander and more real than the total of its own written history. Bundia, the president of the Unified Earth Space Council, has spoken these words to the people of the Sol system on the eve of the launching of the Marathon. This, the greatest achievement mankind has ever conceived, will be for the purpose of peace and preservation of the human race. May this great technological arc carry with it the sum total of all human wisdom, and may neither time nor distance weaken our common ties. Let's recap what we learned so far. For consistency's sake, I will call the protagonist the security officer, because he is referred to as a security officer throughout the Marathon manuals. The security officer is aboard a space shuttle called the Marauder. The Marauder has just entered orbit around a planet we do not yet know the name of. We will learn soon enough that the name of this planet is Tau Ceti. We learn that the security officer is concerned about the colony on the Tau Ceti planet, but we do not yet know why. The security officer has apprehension, and again, we don't know why yet. He recalls a memory from 322 years earlier. How exactly was the security officer alive for that long? Explanation could be advanced medicine, which is unlikely. The more logical explanation is that he was in some sort of cryosleep while the shuttle was traveling through space. We do not know for sure. His recalled memory is from a speech of the leader by the name of Marcus Tiberius Bundia. This name was likely developed from various names of historical importance. Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor from 161 to 180. Tiberius Caesar Augustus was also a Roman emperor from 14 to 37. Bundia was a family name of a dynasty in a famous fictional book, 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Marquez. Understanding the origin of the name might give us some ideas of what Bungie was envisioning when they created him. We learned that Marcus is a leader of the Sol system. Throughout the game, Sol is associated with Earth. Suffice to say that Sol is Earth's sun, and the Sol system encompasses everything that orbits Sol. This suggests that the people on Earth have expanded to other planets within the Sol system. They also have been unified in what is called the Unified Earth Space Council, or UESC for short. Note that the Unified Earth Space Council was called the United Earth Space Council in the introduction on Bungie's first webpage. Whether it is unified or united doesn't matter much, as the meaning is the same. Perhaps the UESC would be something like the United Nations or NATO, that is a collection of the different countries on Earth expanding to space in a group effort. The speech given by Marcus Tiberius Bundia is focused on the launch of the Marathon. We are not sure what the purpose of the Marathon was. The first part of his quote was, "Mankind will venture out past its earthly bounds and move into a future grander and more real than the total of its own written history." This implies that the Marathon allowed the UESC to extend mankind outside of their previous limits of space exploration. I would think that humanity's limits of space exploration at the time may have been limited to just the Sol system before the completion of the Marathon, but I don't know if we know this for sure. The second part of the quote is a little bit more ambiguous. This, the grandest achievement mankind has ever conceived, will be for the purpose of peace and preservation of the human race. May this great technological arc carry with it the sum total of all human wisdom, and may neither time nor distance weaken our common ties. How exactly did the Marathon bring about peace and preservation of the human race? Is this because humanity was running out of space in the Sol system? Was there fear of the common ties being weakened because the Marathon would be going beyond where humanity with the Sol system was able to reach previously? The manual continues. Durandal decompresses the docking bay. We will quickly learn that Durandal is one of the Marathon ship's AIs. The correct pronunciation is Durandal, and I will try to maintain that pronunciation, but I am likely to forget and will end up saying Durandal. The correct pronunciation comes from the voice of Double Aught's Chris McVeigh in a tutorial movie showing how to use the Forge. The Forge was the map editor that came with Marathon Infinity. We will likely be referring to this tutorial for the correct pronunciation on some other words too. We will discuss a bit more about the origin of the name Durandal later in this video. Durandal decompresses the docking bay. During the daydream, you barely notice the change to zero gravity or the instruments and lights signifying the rendezvous of the shuttle with the Marathon. But as the warning light goes on, and Durandal's voice comes over the communicator, you jump to attention. Docking Bay 1. Decompression completed. Murata, this is Durandal. Abort landing. Repeat. Abort landing. A faint chuckle. A chuckle, which means that something has gone horribly wrong. Immediately your reflexes take over as you fall into automatic response mode. You hit the switch for open communication. Colony Station. Durandal has just decompressed the landing bay. Marathon. Anyone listening? We are having a problem with Docking Bay 1. It's Durandal. I think he's gone. The comm light goes dead. Crazy. Remembering the speech from Bundia really put the security guard in a haze, as he seemed to not notice anything going on around him for a while. We immediately learn that something weird is going on with Durandal, as the AI chuckles, and also the security officer says he has gone crazy. It seems that decompressing the docking bay was an attempt by Durandal to prevent the Murata from being able to land on the Marathon. It is not clear why this is the case, but I am sure with some thought we could come to a good scientific reason for why this would be the case. Unless, of course, we are wrong about that. The fact that the security officer falls into automatic response mode suggests that he is very experienced with dealing with these type of situations. Perhaps this is no ordinary security officer. Durandal. Order. Lock out communications between the colony and the shuttle. Order. Cycle the shuttle airlock. You look frantically around the control panel for some explanation when you see another light on the control panel turn red. The sweet voice of the shuttle's computer twerps. Shuttle airlock cycle initiation sequence start. Durandal, cycle the Murata cabin's inner door. 1 minute to cabin decompression. God damn it. You slam your fist in frustration into the board, leaving a dent. In a panic, you tear off your seat restraints and leap for the rear of the shuttle cabin. 40 seconds to cabin decompression. You're rushing, but you know you have plenty of time. Durandal locked out communication between the Murata and the colony on the Tau Ceti below. Is there some information he doesn't want the security officer to know? Or perhaps he doesn't want the colony to know that he's gone crazy. What is Durandal up to? The fact that the Murata would just listen to Durandal to cycle the shuttle airlock suggests that the computers were programmed to trust Durandal, and it was never expected that Durandal would go crazy. In frustration, the security officer has struck the control board with his fist, leaving a dent. Is the control panel weak, or is the security officer stronger than your typical guy? Let's continue and see if we can find out some more about him. You fly in zero gravity towards the locker holding your battle armor. You haven't worn it since you had to hunt down some Chakasins which were harassing the work team on the fringe of the colony almost 3 years ago, but training is something that you never forget. It's funny, but you've always been the colony's troubleshooter. You're bigger and stronger and a better shot. In games, you always scored the most points and looked the hero. And now it looks like you're heading right into the colony's biggest crisis since it was established 7 years ago. You nimbly pull yourself into your suit, 30 seconds to cabin decompression, and pull the helmet onto your head. What exactly are Chakasins? They seem to be some sort of creature that would harass workers on the colony below us. It appears that the security officer would hunt them down as part of his training, which he completed 3 years ago. He has not been out of their training that long then. Perhaps we went into automatic response mode because his training is still fresh in his mind. The manual describes the security officer as a troubleshooter who's bigger, stronger, and a better shot than the other officers. This security officer would score so many points in his training tests that he was seen as a hero. I guess the best hero needed a crisis of a fitting size, although we don't know exactly what that crisis is yet. The colony was established 7 years ago. 7. Keep that number in the back of your head. For some reason, we will be seeing that number a lot. There are all kinds of explanations that the reason 7 could have importance, but I don't want to dwell in a bunch of reasons that are probably wrong. Just know that we will see this number again and again and again. There have been some discussions in the past about how tall exactly the security officer is. We just learned that he is bigger and stronger than his counterparts, but how tall is that exactly? Jay Berry with Bungie confirmed in a post on alt.games.marathon that Jonas Enroth had figured out that the player was about 5'7". Both Jay Berry and Jonas Enroth were credited with product assistance for Marathon Infinity. We don't really know how they came up with this number, so take it with a grain of salt. Jay and Jason were not part of the story writing after all. The Marathon Trilogy manual tells us that the player is 0.8 world units tall. You can find this in the Forged Guide within the manual. The manual also tells us that the world unit is about 2 meters long. Doing some simple math, we can find that the security guard is about 5'3". The biggest problem with this is that the Trilogy manual doesn't say it's 2 meters, but about 2 meters. So realistically, this could be anywhere between 1.5 meters to 2.5 meters due to rounding, which would make our height anywhere from 3'11 to 6'6". As you can tell, this isn't accurate enough information to give us a strong feeling on the character's height, especially if you would even believe this information from a lore perspective. If you want to go down an even longer tangent about the security guard's height, take a look at the Marathon story page. Just know that there really is nothing solid out there. The big question is, would living in outer space make someone naturally taller or shorter? This might cue us in a bit about the player's height. Back on the Murata, our security officer is all geared up for Durandal's attempt to sabotage the ship's oxygen. Durandal, order. Prepare the shuttle for maximum engine burn. Murata's computer. But that will result in collision between the Marathon and the Murata. Durandal, that is not your concern. Order. Prepare shuttle for maximum burn and initiate when ready. The lights around the airlock are flashing hysterically now. The air from your suit has a cold, stale taste, but it is the taste of life. Cabin decompression commencing. Shuttle airlock cycle initiation sequence completed. Gray-white decompressing vapor fills the cylindrical passageway of the airlock. Through the degenerating clouds of the airlock passageway, instead of looking upon the Tau Ceti starscape, you see a tensor mirage effect. Space blurring and focusing in diminishing cycles. The TME is commonplace to you. Humanity has used teleporters for almost 500 years, and you yourself have been teleporting since you were born. But you have never seen the TME cover an area so big before, and never at all without a landing pad. And yet, another first. A space fighter materializes right in front of your eyes. Since you don't recognize the model, it must be an alien ship. First an insane computer, and now aliens. This has almost ruffled your otherwise calm outward appearance, and you don't remember the last time you had such a terrible day. But it gets worse when the fighter begins to spin around and yaw down on your defenseless Murata. Maximum burn in 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. The Tensor Mirage effect is actually a reference to Inside Mac Gaming's Tensor Denise. Tensor would at some point transition to working for Bungie later on, and helped out a bit with some of the documentation for Marathon Infinity. I'm not sure what Tensor said or did that earned his name with this specific phenomenon, but the name does have a nice ring to it. The manual describes the tungsten mirage effect in order to help us visualize what it would look like when space alien ships are teleported into view. How far can this alien spacecraft teleport? That's a scary thought if it can just teleport across the galaxy instantaneously. We start to wonder though, is the reason Durandal ordered the Marathon to get to maximum burn because he knew the alien spaceship was going to teleport in? Or is he just trying to get us killed? I like how it says that the space fighter appearing almost ruffled the security officer's appearance. Almost. What a badass. Reading on. You don't wait to hear the rest of the countdown. Instinct acts on its own. The entrance to the maneuvering pod is directly behind you, so you punch the switch for it to open. The hatch flips down, but just as you're about to climb in, the Marauder's main engines fire at maximum burn. The jolt sends you crashing headfirst into the pod where you land in a tangle of levers, dials, and limbs. Here is an image of the Shuttle Marauder in the manual, and also additional sketch in the user guide that comes in the game files. We will also get to see the shuttle in the first mission of the game. The hatch closes behind you, and before you can untangle yourself, a missile appears from under the fighter and speeds toward the Marauder. The Marauder onboard computer, detecting the incoming missile and knowing that you are already on board the MP, fires the emergency deployment charges. You are rocketed away, seeming to ride the shockwave of the exploding shuttle. There is some discussion on the Marathon story page about the alien fighter and whether it is in fact the alien mothership that we will encounter later on. The ability of the alien fighter to spin around and yaw down seems to imply that the spacecraft has a lot of maneuverability and is likely not the mothership, although this is far from a certainty. On the flip side, however, the spacecraft image that is shown in the manual looks exactly like the poor mothership we will see out the window in the game. We might just be able to chalk this inconsistency to the limitation of the number of things that Bungie was willing to draw. I'm not sure that Bungie was intending us to read that far into the images, but boy were they wrong. In Marathon 2, we will actually learn that the name of the alien ship is the Sephira, so I will refer to the ship by that name to get it ingrained in our mind and for simplicity. Back to the manual. You have just freed your arms when over the battle communicator, Durandal remarks dryly. The little computer always did have impeccable timing. I wonder if I should let the aliens know that you aren't just space debris. You can't do that. Damn you, computer. Durandal chuckles again. Ah, lucky you. I found a new distraction. I'm going to play with the alien virtual parasites. I'll look you up when you arrive. You can almost imagine the face of a wicked computer with its eyes wide and its lips folding out in a grotesque smile. A smile which reminds you of something from your past, but you can't remember exactly what it is. Was Durandal really trying to kill us, or is he messing with us? His AI is going so completely insane that it is difficult to read his motives. Why would the security officer picture Durandal with a grotesque smile, and why would it remind us of our past? Is Bungie hinting at something in the security officer's past? Or is it something from both Bungie's past and our personal past? If you take a look at the item description for the alien pipes from Pathways into Darkness, it is oddly familiar. This bizarre musical instrument reminds you vaguely of a book you once read while you were a child. You can't quite place it. We never learn in Pathways exactly how this tied into the hero's story, and that is sort of the same thing here. Bungie has a habit of creating holes in the stories to make us wonder about all sorts of things. This is something you will see a lot in Bungie games. Whatever the case is, the manual continues. You breathe a sigh of relief and begin to survey your situation. You are currently floating toward the midsection of the Marathon near the docking day section's port side. You could get there faster, but if you use the pod's thrusters, chances are the aliens will detect it and destroy you. So you sit back, check the pod's oxygen levels, and wait. You've always been a daydreamer. Your mind has constantly filled with times between activities with imagination. Now you fall into your old habit and begin to daydream about your childhood on Mars, your father's death when you were 7, and his last words to you. Make me proud. Never lose your honor. You come out of your dream 22 minutes later. Judging it's safe, you thrust over to one of the empty MP docking bays. You pull out your pistol and pound the switch to open the door. Oddly, this is familiar to you, as if it were from an old dream, but you can't exactly remember. Your age was 7 at the time of your father's death. 7. On Bungie's first webpage, the age was 11. Was it changed to add more 7s to the game, or to remove one? I'm not sure why the security officer is seen as a daydreamer here. We do learn though that we had been on Mars during our childhood. You'll notice that throughout the introduction that the manual referred to the security officer as you, creating a sort of interchangeability between the security officer and the player. This brings us to the last line where it says again, oddly this is familiar to you, as if it were from an old dream, but you can't exactly remember. What old dream is the game talking about? Is there a lore explanation for this? Possibly, but I think there is a better explanation for this. What does the introduction sound familiar to? That's right, the introduction is eerily similar to Pathways into Darkness. The Marathon is the helicopter, which was also destroyed. The maneuvering pod is the parachute that helped us safely land. Well, sort of safely land anyways, as in Pathways everyone thought we were dead and we had to cut ourselves down from a tree. We also start this game with the door behind us, as described in the introduction, and as we will soon see in the game. Too bad in Pathways, we didn't get to start the game with a functional pistol though. To reinforce this idea, take a look at Greg Kirkpatrick's response on a Reddit post. Does the security officer have a player? Ideally, it is a person playing. The game was so linear, you didn't feel like you had that many choices. But that sounds familiar. Well, that is it from the introduction from the manual. But wait, there's more. Bungie's first webpage had a short additional section to the introduction titled Status Report. Let's check it out. At 0820 hours, the UESC Marathon space station came under surprise attack by unknown alien forces. You were returning from the colony in a shuttle that was also attacked. Your escape pod reached the Marathon 30 minutes after the attack started. There have been numerous security breaches all over the station. The spaceport on the planet below was destroyed by low-yield nuclear weapons minutes after the attack on the Marathon began, but the aliens seem to be more interested in the station. Most communications with the colonists have been interrupted because the medium-range audio antenna has been disabled. The Marathon is equipped with 3 artificial intelligence units. Tycho handles the science and engineering network. Durandal controls the Marathon autonomous functions such as door, air, kitchens, and stairs, and Leela takes care of defense, etc. Leela and Durandal are severely damaged while Tycho is destroyed. Your mission is to reactivate the defense system of the Marathon and eradicate the alien invasion. Leela has constructed 3 replacement boards that will repair the defense system, but you need to install them. But it seems that Durandal has taken control and is playing a deadly game. Your mission will take you to places no human has ever gone, and you will see things you should not see. You must save the Marathon and the colony from the invasion, and keep on your toes as things go wrong. Good luck. Our escape pod reached the Marathon 30 minutes after the attack started. Near the beginning of the introduction we read, after the jolting of the separation ceases, you find yourself pondering the fate of the colony receding below you. This suggests that the security officer already knew about the aliens and they were attacking the colony below prior to us reaching the Marathon. It seems that the aliens likely began their attack on the Tau Ceti colony before attacking the Marathon. The status report discusses 3 different AIs on the Marathon that we will interact with throughout the game. Let's discuss each of these AIs briefly. Page 13 of the manual includes some additional information about the AIs. Accessing Marathon's AIs. All of the Marathon's automated systems are controlled by 3 AIs, artificial intelligences. One was destroyed in the alien attack. Another, Durandal, was severely injured. The third, Leela, the ship operational AI, remained operational. The AIs are accessed through computer interface terminals that can be found on every level. Interfacing with the AIs is vital to obtaining information and planning objectives towards defeating the alien attack. Leela will be very helpful, but beware of the injured and malfunctional Durandal. First off, there is Durandal, who we already met, and he gave us quite the warm welcome. Sarcasm, of course. This is actually not the first time Durandal existed within a Bungie game. In Minotaur Labyrinth of Crete, there is a magic sword that you can pick up called Durandal. Also, in Frankish lore, there was a military leader named Roland who carries the legendary sword Durandal. This is also referenced in the Song of Roland. This goes back to Jason Jones' infatuation with historical books and his college major in classics. Strangely, Greg Kirkpatrick was quoted stating the following: "I first heard the name in reference to an anti-runway bomb used in F-16 Fighting Falcon, and they spelled it Durandal. Later when I read the Song of Roland, I saw the other spelling, but just assumed that the A had come into Anglicization of the word and that the translator of the book had just kept the E to use the original spelling. When we stuck in the text from the Song of Roland, it seemed like it would have just looked like we misspelled it in the quote. The French Durandal bomb was designed to make an aircraft runway inoperable. Regardless, it seems that Durandal's name has roots in both meanings. It seems that Durandal is doing more than just his original autonomous functions such as doors, airs, kitchens, and stairs. Or perhaps the AI is just as intelligent as he is crazy, and he can use those functions to dangerous effects. The manual said that Durandal was severely damaged and that Durandal had been taken control of and is playing a dangerous game. What game is he playing? Are the aliens somehow influencing or controlling Durandal's behavior? Perhaps we will find out soon. Next, we got Tycho. Tycho's name sort of sounds like technology, and that fits his job description of handling the science and security networks. The status report said that Tycho was destroyed, so we are unlikely to run across him anytime soon. Leela is also severely damaged and is in charge of the Marathon's defenses. Perhaps that is why we didn't hear from Leela when Durandal was messing with the Marathon. If Durandal was operating the ship's defenses, he may have shot down the alien spaceship, or us. Leela was nowhere in sight during our landing, and that could be because she was damaged before our arrival. We will meet Leela in our first mission aboard the Marathon. There are a few other things we can learn from the manual. The Marathon interface on page 12 of the manual says that we have a cyberhead helmet that contains the interface we see on our HUD. The helmet is a computer device that can interface with the surrounding environment. I guess you could call it a smart helmet. Page 13 also has some additional information. Playing Marathon. In Marathon, you are a security officer aboard the interstellar colony ship Marathon. The Marathon is attacked by a vicious race of slavers known as the Four. You must defend your ship and crew from the invading Four, or all of humanity will fall to their mercies. Or at least your butt will be toast, which should be motivation enough to fend them off. The game starts as you board the Marathon after narrowly escaping the destruction of your orbital shuttle. We learned that the aliens known as the Four are slavers. Does this mean that they intend to enslave the humans on the Marathon and on the Tau Ceti colony? There are some possibilities for the source of the name of the Four, but none of them seem solid enough to share. Perhaps one day we can ask Jason himself where he came up with the name. The spelling on the manual for the Four is incorrect though, as throughout the trilogy, the F comes before the H. I've never played through any of Destiny, perhaps I will one day, but one really interesting note is the name Four actually appears within the Destiny game, although the meaning is quite different. If you take a look at the mysterious logbook of Clovis Bray I, you will find this term. Clovis Bray I being a scientist within the Destiny lore. Apparently, 4 is the acronym for Clovis's strangely titled book. I would try to read the name to you, but I would butcher the title horribly. The manual also has an image of one of the Four. The Four look very similar to a hero named Bug in Marvel's Micronaut comics. In an Agents of Cool interview, this question was brought up to some of the Bungie staff. Were you influenced by the Micronauts? Robert McLeese. Yeah, but not in any way that relates to my work on Durandal. Mark Bernal. Yes, in fact I collected the Marvel comic books for a while when I was younger. Doug Zartman. Micronauts? There goes our Agent of Cool credibility right there. Weren't they the scientists that got shrunk and injected into the politician with a blood clot in his brain? Yeah, Fantastic Voyage, that's it. They fight a giant white blood cell. Cool. Nope, no influence. Alex Seropian, no. The answer appears to be no, as Mark Bernal and Robert McLeese did not join the Bungie staff until Marathon 2 Durandal. The question is, was Reginald de Jor influenced by Marvel's Micronaut comics in his design? Perhaps, we will never know. Page 14 of the manual includes some information about jump pads and tells us what century we are in. Jump pads. Ah, life in the glorious 28th century. Walking into a jump pad will instantly transport you to a new location. According to the lost network packets, the Marathon was attacked on the year 2794. Moving on to page 15, we will learn a little bit more about the civilians on board the Marathon. The original crew of the Marathon consisted of 50 senior staff, 1,150 officers, and 24,000 civilians, all of whom were citizens of the Mars colony or Earth. Some individuals were placed in stasis for the interstellar journey, but most civilians lived and worked on the ship and raised families there. As the crew aged, a new generation of humans were born and raised on the Marathon. By some, these children were looked down upon and called Bob, short for Born on Board. These civilians grew to run the ship. It is your sworn duty as a security officer to protect Bob. Since we are at least on the second generation of the Marathon citizens, it'd be reasonable to assume that there are more than 24,000 citizens on board at this point, or at least there were before the 4 invasion. It seems that when the Marathon was launched, humans were primarily on the planets Mars and Earth. Perhaps Tau Ceti was one of the first places the Marathon created a new colony. This must mean that the security officer grew up on Mars and joined the Marathon when it was launched. It seems to match everything we learned so far from the manual. Anyways, that's all for this video. If you are interested, you can find the Marathon comic created by a fan in the Blast from the Past that recaps the story from the manual. See you all next time in the first mission, Arrival.